Hello and welcome, friends. Today I'm going to tell a story that gets close and personal. It deals with the passing of my grandma, my mommy, as she had chosen to be referred to, and all the experiences and occurrences that were tied to it within my immediate family. When my grandmother died, it was the winter season. I was very young, only 3 years old at the time, but I can remember some things very clearly from those days because she had been dear to me. Of all my grandparents, she was the one who had cared for me the most. Most of my relatives were cold and strict, completely terrifying in the eyes of a child. But my grandma, she was a different sort. She held me on her lap. She had real contact with me. She wrote me little love notes, even though I didn't know how to read yet. I still have some of those intact. She was a warm, free, loving spirit who had a thing going for all things beautiful. And she always smelled so good. Those are the things that I remember about her. Those are the most rudimentary memories once embedded into the mind of a 3-year-old version of me. When my grandmother died, my mother was devastated. She stayed near us kids, perhaps to better manage her sorrow and drown it with the love that she felt for us. I cannot actually remember how I learned about my mommy's death, but I do remember struggling to come to terms with this knowledge a couple of days on. Anyway, at night, on the day that my grandmother had died, my mom and dad were getting ready for bed. Their bedroom was on the 3rd, and as such, the top level of the house, quite high up. It was cold outside, and the yard was covered in a fresh blanket of snow. Suddenly, when they were doing their late night chores, there was a sharp tap on the window, and another one, and a third one. Very sharp knocks, almost like a small rock had been thrown onto the glass, but not quite like that. There was no echo to the sound, and no other sounds could be heard, like of stones ricocheting, as one might expect to hear if someone was throwing pebbles onto the window. My mum immediately jumped up and inspected the window, then scanned the front yard of our house from the darkness of the bedroom. She could see no one outside, and no harm had been done to the window. She waited there by the window and watched, to no avail. There were no footprints in the freshly fallen snow. As the air was frosty, the sound couldn't have been caused by water drops dripping onto the windowsill outside. Neither was the sound anything like the sound of water dripping. No plumbing was present that was known to cause sounds like that. Nothing could be used as a rational explanation for the events. As no logical explanation to the sounds appeared, my mum started to feel that it was her mother's way of giving her a sign of the fact that there exists a state of afterlife. Also, this goes very much hand in hand with the age-old Finnish beliefs, according to which birds can act as messengers of death, always knocking 3 times to announce a death. And according to some of these legends, it is not necessarily a bird conveying the message, but in any case, the message involves a knocking sound that can be heard to resound 3 times. I myself also have a clear and very personal memory having to do with my mummy's passing. 2 or 3 days after my grandmother left this world, something else happened that has stayed in my memory as meaningful. My grandmother had once given me a gift of a cassette tape by Chris Rea. I remember sitting in an indoor swing that was hanging from the doorway of the children's room, and I was listening to the tape playing on a portable stereo system. I was deep in thought, and I was actually thinking about my grandmother. I had very recently been asking about her. I had been inquiring some details about her passing that I wanted to know. Suddenly the playing of the music ceased, as the stereo system completely destroyed the cassette tape by pulling lengths of the tape out of the cassette and bundling it into a crumpled mess inside the stereo system. At this moment, I came to realize the finality of my grandmother's passing. As the music ended, a deep feeling of loss took over me. A feeling and a realization that was much deeper than I had ever experienced so far in my life. Regardless of my very young age, 3 years old, I remember this moment clearly, and I remember believing in some way that it was, in a weird way, my grandmother's goodbye to me. I actually have an agreement with my own mother that if there actually is an afterlife, we have made a pact that she will try and do the same thing to me when it comes her time to move beyond the border of this life. Well, that's all for now. I hope you liked this story, even though it had quite sad and somber undertones. Anyway, I will get back to you soon with some more intriguing stories later. Mwah!